Jay, before we get to the game tonight, maybe just a thought on what today means, and all your players have been adorned in orange, and I imagine it's something you guys have addressed as a group.
Yeah, it's obviously a day of reflection. Truth and Reconciliation Day is an important day for our city, for our province, and for the country in general. Just in talking with some of the peoples involved with our organization, continue to mention and talk about the land acknowledgement that we see before every Oilers home game, and also a lot of the great work that our organization does with an organization called Bent Arrow. So important day, as I said, for our city, our province, and our country.
I want to ask you about McDavid and the goal-scoring evolution. 44 last season. I think there's a sense that if he sets his mind to getting as many goals as he possibly can, who knows what sort of total he can push, but that's not necessarily the way he processes the game. It's about the right play in the right moment. So what do you see about his hunger to score goals versus the hunger to win, and how, there's sometimes could be a clash there. If a guy wanted to be more selfish, he could probably get more.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with your assessment. I think probably one of the words that doesn't get used enough to describe Connor is how unselfish of a hockey player he is. And that's a great quality in a teammate. But I think, and I have 100% belief that when the play to be made is to shoot, I think Connor will shoot that puck, but he is driven by making the right play in the right moment. And, obviously, about his playmaking ability, but he's got a great shot too. He can put it where he wants it, and it's something he's worked a lot on over the years.
So it's a long camp. There's a lot of players, and you have sort of all these different balls in the air. You have the veterans who you kind of, you know what they're going to be about, but you also have to evaluate some young guys. So how do you map everything out? And is it kind of a moving target, or did you know before camp even started that you were going to wait till game 4 before starting a lot of your top guys?
Yeah, I knew where we were going to introduce some players into game action. We talked about this the other day, is that there's also requirements on the amount of veterans that have to play in NHL preseason games as well. So you got to factor all that kind of stuff in. I think you start out with a game plan of when people will play what games, and then you watch too. You watch as camp develops, but certainly this was a day we were going to introduce some players that haven't played yet.
A lot of what they do is on their own in the off season, right? Their summer training, their captain skates. What do you see when you walk in the door for medicals and your first practice from the veterans this season?
Yeah, I've been quite pleased with how training camp has gone. We talked yesterday how it's almost in phases, the training camp, but that first day I saw our leaders come in top condition and show how important it was to be in top shape in order to have the type of year that we want to have. So I was quite pleased with that. I've been very pleased with the pace of practice, the amount of teaching that we've been able to get done while balancing the need for the work rate to be high, especially early. I said right off the bat that we had a few goals heading into training camp. One of them was to test and then grow our conditioning level. The other one was to compete versus each other so that one day we can compete for each other. And I think we've accomplished both of those things right off the bat. And then the last thing we talked about was building our playing personnel. And that's something that's going to get chipped away at each day that we're together, but we're laying a good foundation for it.
Hey, Jay, you mentioned the phases there. You talked about them yesterday, of phases of training camp.
Yep.
You said phase 3 doesn't really officially start or the next phase doesn't really start till next week, but is this kind of like a new chapter in the sense that you're playing so many of these veteran guys and you maybe want to see what you have tonight in this group?
Yeah, I think, it kind of goes to the previous question there with, this week we were tasked with playing 5 games in a short amount of time, 3 of which are on the road. We're excited about the lineup that we're introducing. I would say to you that we've gotten a lot of really good practices in with some players that haven't played yet. I think they're sick of practicing. I think they're ready to go against live fire kind of competition, jerseys of a different color, jerseys of a different logo, that type of thing. So, you know, while we've gotten a lot of good practices in, I think our you know, top players are excited about playing against a different opponent.
I don't recall you using Ryan McLeod and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins too much together last year. What intrigues you about that possibility? And two guys that can play center, how do you kind of see them, you know, working around and together?
I'll start it with the last part of the question. I would say, I think centermen have the ability to play anywhere. They can play right, left. Just they have that ability to be moved around the lineup. What intrigued us about putting RNH and Clowder together was that we think they have some skills that can complement each other, and we wanted to take a look at that. And tonight's our first look in a game action at that. That's what training camp's for. It's to maybe experiment with a few things and see if we can find chemistry in areas that haven't been tried out before. And that's one we're going to start with tonight.
Jay, you talked about Connor and scoring goals and such. As a coach, some centers shoot the puck. Matthews is a shooter. He's not a passer. Maybe that's because he plays with Marner. But as a coach, do you notice that? McKinnon likes to shoot the puck a lot, but he plays center, not the wing. Do you, as a coach, to game plan for those centers who likes to shoot the puck a lot as opposed to pass it?
Yeah, I think that goes in your game plan for sure. Those players you mentioned are pretty good hockey players, pretty well-rounded. I think when describing them, you go to maybe their primary asset, but they have some other secondary skills to their game. I think with Connor, not only is he, you know, the way he plays the game is his skills are sublime. But I don't think he gets enough credit for how well-rounded of a player he is. I saw him take a step as the season wore on last year. He keeps getting better. I've had the good fortune of seeing when he first came into the league and to see where he was then, which was electrifying at that time, but to see where he is as a complete player now, it's impressive. And it's a credit to all the hard work that he puts in and the value he puts on every aspect of the game. So, you know, it's hard to put him into a box with only one word.
Jay, I just wanted to ask you about Connor's leadership. He was asked about the captaincy and said, yeah, maybe it was a little challenging when you're that young. You were there then, and you're here now with a break in between from being around him on an everyday basis. I wonder if you could give us an idea of, you know, we see on the ice, but maybe some leadership abilities that he's grown into that you see more often away from the rink, different places than the general public would see.
Yeah, well, I think, number one, he's a very caring person. He cares about individuals. He cares to get to know people on an individual level. Maybe the public doesn't get to see all the behind the scenes parts of that, but I can tell you I've noticed that over the years. And as captain, I think that falls within his purview, is to make sure that everybody is feeling good and comfortable and accepted members of the group. I also think, as I've seen him mature, that he does a good job of holding people accountable. I think, you know, it's that aspect of things is also important. He comes to the rink every day with a purpose to be the best that he can be, a purpose to be the best in the world, a purpose to help lead our team forward. And he doesn't suffer people that aren't all in that kind of quest. And so for me, that's the true form of leadership. It's not just setting an example, but it's holding others to a certain standard. He does that every day with how he comes to the rink, for sure, but he's not afraid that if people are falling short, to either help them out or call attention to the fact that we need more. And I think those are the marks of a great leader. And I know that in my 18 years in professional hockey, I've seen some really good ones, and Connor's right at that level.
So with your power play, there's so much elite talent on it that I'm sure automatically going to be no matter what, which isn't obviously the case to the full extent. What do you guys do to sort of stay ahead of the curve in that cat and mouse game where the other guys are breaking down your film, so you have to change something, but you don't want to change too much because it's working?
Yeah, I'd start with the fact that three of the main pieces in Connor, Leon, and Nuge, they've been together for quite a long time, so they understand each other's tendencies. They almost speak a shorthand when it comes to power play. Different people have been introduced over the years. I remember Chase on and James Neal and those type of guys were net front players. Now you're seeing Puljujarvi play some net front, even Kane plays some net front, and certainly Zach Hyman plays some net front, and then you've had quarterbacks kind of change over. I think as a coaching staff, the way you continue to grow is by study. That's what happens in the summertime, and it happens throughout the season as well. So studying penalty kills, studying where other teams are having success on the power play, and then the introduction of those ideas to your players to see what fits with your team's skill sets. I think players also have great ideas. So you have to be open to ask questions and listen to them because they feel certain things on the ice and they feel where pressure is coming from. They feel where seams might be open. And to discuss that and have an open dialogue, I also think is important. Good, thanks guys.